Every gardener faces the same battle when summer heat sets in, keeping soil moist without constant watering. Most of us reach for the hose or irrigation system, only to see moisture vanish a day later under the scorching sun. But here's the thing. The Amish figured out a simple, almost foolproof way to keep their garden beds moist for up to 30 days without a drop of added water. It's not fancy, it's not expensive, and it's not a product you can buy. It's a technique built on generations of soil wisdom, and once you understand how it works, you'll never look at mulch the same way again. Most gardeners get mulching wrong because they skip the moisture lock layer. Ask any gardener about mulch, and you'll hear the usual advice. Spread a few inches of straw, wood chips, or leaves over your soil to hold moisture. That's good advice in theory, but it's only half the story. Traditional mulching slows evaporation, but it doesn't lock moisture into the soil. The Amish take it a step further by adding a hidden layer beneath the mulch, a dense, moisture-holding barrier made from organic matter that traps humidity at the root zone. Here's the principle. Water doesn't just escape upward, it moves sideways and through capillary action. When soil is exposed to air, moisture evaporates from those upper pores. The Amish method stops this by sealing those pores with a sponge layer that mimics the forest floor. This layer feeds microbes, prevents compaction, and forms a living barrier that keeps water cycling between the soil and the mulch above, instead of letting it escape into the air. What makes this method different is what lies between the soil and the mulch. Instead of laying mulch directly on bare soil, the Amish spread a 2-inch layer of half-rotted compost or partially decomposed hay first. This isn't finished compost. It's material still rich in cellulose and microbial life, often moist, soft, and slightly warm to the touch. It acts like a sponge that absorbs water when it rains or when you irrigate, then slowly releases it back to plant roots as the soil dries out. The perfect mix for this sponge layer is, well, roughly 2 parts green material to 1 part brown. So, that means 2 buckets of grass clippings, fresh weeds, or kitchen scraps for every bucket of dry leaves, straw, or shredded cardboard. The green materials provide nitrogen and microbial activity, while the browns give the structure needed to hold moisture. Just mix them lightly and let them sit for about a week before applying to get them started fermenting without going anaerobic. To apply this properly, you start with well-loosened soil. No tilling, just a light forking to open the surface and break compaction. Spread your prepared sponge layer directly over the bed about 2 inches thick. Then, on top of that, add your traditional mulch layer, which should be thicker, around 4 to 5 inches. The top mulch can be straw, shredded bark, or even chopped leaves, depending on what's available locally. The idea is to let the mulch act as insulation, while the sponge layer beneath acts as your reservoir. When done correctly, the 2 layers create a perfect microclimate. The mulch prevents direct sun exposure, while the sponge layer traps humidity at the root level. Water from dew, rainfall, or light irrigation filters through the mulch and gets stored in that middle layer, keeping the soil evenly moist for weeks. Even in drought conditions, the soil beneath stays cool and damp to the touch, long after neighboring beds have turned to dust. Adding moisture before mulching supercharges this system. The Amish are careful to start with fully hydrated soil before applying the layers. They'll soak the bed deeply, around 1 inch of water, before adding the sponge and mulch layers. That initial moisture charge gets sealed in, allowing the system to regulate itself. In my own experience and in tests done by homestead growers, this method can maintain soil moisture for up to 25 to 30 days without additional watering, even in high summer heat. The key is the depth and quality of the layers. Too thin and it dries out, too thick and you risk smothering the soil. The sweet spot is roughly 6 to 7 inches total depth from the soil surface to the top of the mulch. Organic materials make all the difference in the long-term performance of the system. Amish farmers and gardeners rarely use synthetic materials. Their mulch stacks come from what's already on the farm: straw, hay, leaves, and animal bedding. They prefer these materials because they break down over time, enriching the soil while maintaining porosity. Over a season, the sponge layer decomposes into humus, which is like a long-term moisture battery for the bed. If you're in a dry climate, you'll want to add an extra step. After building your layers, just sprinkle a light dusting of wood ash or biochar before laying the mulch. These materials, well, they help retain even more moisture by reducing evaporation and providing micropores that store water. The Amish, for example, have been known to mix in charred corn stalks or ashes from wood stoves for this very reason. This system, it actually reduces weeding, watering and fertilizing all at once. Because the mulch blocks sunlight and the sponge layer holds moisture, weeds find it really hard to germinate. Any that do appear, well, they pull out easily from the soft, hydrated surface. At the same time, the slow breakdown of organic matter releases nutrients steadily into the soil, so you don't need to use liquid feeds or add compost as often. The entire bed, you see, becomes a living ecosystem, cool, moist and fertile throughout the growing season. One Amish gardener explained that he rarely waters his vegetable beds more than twice all summer unless there's a severe drought. The results are, well, consistent yields, less stress on the plants, and a thriving population of beneficial organisms that regulate the soil naturally. The beauty of this trick is that it works anywhere with the right balance of layers. You don't need acres of land or farm equipment to use this method. It works just as well in raised beds, garden rows, or even large containers. The only adjustment you make is scale. For smaller spaces, reduce the layer depth proportionally. 1 inch of sponge layer and 3 inches of mulch work perfectly in pots or small boxes. Over time, as your sponge layer decomposes, simply rake back the mulch and refresh it with new material. Each season, your soil will become darker, softer, and more moisture retentive. It's a self-sustaining cycle that mirrors how nature keeps forests green without a single watering can. So the next time you're fighting dry soil or dragging the hose across the yard, remember this Amish mulching trick. Build your sponge layer, top it right, and let nature hold the water for you. You'll save time, conserve water, and end up with soil that stays alive long after the rain stops. If you found this guide helpful, make sure to subscribe to Soil Doctor and share this video with other gardeners who want to work smarter, not harder. Let's spread these old-world soil secrets and keep every bed thriving naturally.